Hello, good day, everybody. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for sharing your valuable time with me today in going over the Fanvil broadcasting and communication solution. People are beginning to sign on now. We'll just give them a couple of extra seconds as they sign on. And thank you very much for being on time, and we'll get this thing started in another 30 seconds, okay? So thank you very much for your patience as people are signing in. Okay, everybody, I want to thank you very much for your time again. My name is Tommy Lee. I'm the VP of Sales for North America for Fanvil, and I want to thank all of my partners, regions, and new acquaintances in the APAC region, and perhaps even more throughout that region. What I will do today is really go over some solutions that we have that go beyond just our PA solutions on our broadcasting solution set. So what we're going to do today is really go over several different topics and provide, in essence, just an overview of all the different type of components that go into a broadcasting solution. Because even though the broadcast solution goes over many of the different core gateways, the Pa2, Pa2s, as well as the Pa3, there are a lot of console pieces that really surround that public announcement gateway that we provide to the marketplace. And a lot of it really consists of a console phone. The A32i is really a Linux-based console phone that really has been catered to really set forth a classic audio broadcast as a way to really group different ways of broadcasting to many different rooms, different campuses, and you're going to understand why. Once we go over the basic idea of where these pieces fit together and how they're put together, we're going to go through some of the basic application scenarios and then review some of the classic case studies that we're going to go through throughout the evening. So that's what we're going to do moving forward. And let's go ahead and get started. So in the core of the broadcast solution really surrounds around our PA system. We really have what we call two separate families of broadcast. We have the Pa2, which is really divided into two categories, the Pa2 and the Pa2s. Both of these devices really do share an identical feature set, with the exception of a different chipset. As you may know, have heard out there, there has been some interesting shortages that have come up in components, and what Fanvil has done to get away from that is being able to establish an identical function device that actually expands from our core Pa2 introduction into a Pa2s, but function-wise, they're both the same. So as we go forward, much of things that I say about the Pa2s will also apply for the Pa2. Beyond the Pa2 and Pa2s, we have the Pa3. I'm going to go into some of the differences and telling you about the differentiation between the Pa3 and the Pa2s. And what these devices really do is provide a good combination of a lot of our access units here, because with these access units, you can actually control doors and things like that, which is available under the Pa2. But the Pa3 has really been dedicated to focus solely on audio broadcasting. And there are some enhancements which I will talk about moving on in the future. As I talked about the A32i, here we go. We have two different broadcasting phones that we have here. We have the X210i as well as the A32i. Really, two of those things really provide a really different type of interface. So the A32i, this really caters to someone who factors into a lot of people who like to have touchscreen functionality, but also comes with a standardized gooseneck that you can actually speak to. And the enhancement that comes in with having a gooseneck, it gives you a really great enhancement of sound. If you were to just to put in a button press on just using the standard speakerphone, you would collect a lot of surrounding noise all around you. Whereas when you get a microphone here, you get far more isolated sound when you kind of do broadcasting solutions, as in if you were making an announcement in a retail store, an education environment, and so on, which we will get into it. Now, beyond both of these units here, both of these units also provide the capability of showing video as well, which is one way. So we can go ahead and actually show, based on these camera-based entry and intercom units here, you can actually show video on both of these displays and take the appropriate action. Now, in reality, a lot of these PA systems that I show here do have the capabilities of broadcasting video as well, but the camera comes in as a separate unit. And what these things do is really provide a core SIP engine onto your network. Now, when you combine all of these solutions and you want to go ahead and deploy in volume, we also have what we call FDMCS as well as FDPS. What FDPS and FDMCS does is really provide a management console, so that what you can do is really provide a standardized template so that you can deploy 1, 2, hundreds, or thousands of these units all automatically by being able to load up all the different MAC addresses and configuration files and load them automatically, so that it saves you lots of time. For those who really are used to deploying telephones into the marketplace, what these tools will do is it will give you the capability of providing you the ability to put in these tools into these devices so that you can go ahead and deploy these things outright into the marketplace. Now let's see how these devices kind of come together, and so you can go ahead and see what we do. Here you could have a cloud or a local PBX server that's sitting either in the cloud or actually on-prem. And when that interfaces into the LAN, you could or could not have a Fanvil device management system. This is really up to you. Now, although we show the A32i here, all of these devices in the broadcast systems that I'm going to be talking about today are all SIP compatible. And what that means is that all these devices can speak to any SIP-based interface endpoint devices. Although we're showing the A32i, which really does cater to looking at this, it will interface to a lot of the different SIP-based endpoints that are available in the marketplace as well. When you look at this, you could be local or remote, but each one has its advantages or disadvantages. You can do things like entrance of a parking lot here, where you can go ahead and actually have the Pa2s that interfaces. And the difference between this and having an unnamed ticket machine is that these devices, the Pa2 and the Pa3, the primary difference between them is that the Pa2 actually has a localized relay that allows you to control devices. This could be a lock or it could be an entrance unit. And so as opposed to having an intercom system here where we actually provide a button and camera, you will actually see later on that you could actually integrate these different devices, whether it's adding a button, adding a camera, or adding 2 buttons for that matter into these units, so that you can cater this, you can upgrade a classic analog system to work in your SIP-based device as you see fit that meets your project needs. Now let's talk a little bit about the easier remote management. Very often, we work very hard in deploying our telephone sets into many of the system PBXs in the world, whether it's in the cloud or on-prem. But very often, you don't necessarily see a lot of these interface devices, whether it be a door access system or perhaps a PA system. And what we do is actually provide a supplemental configuration and provisioning file here that allows you to go ahead and expand beyond just telephones, and then you can begin to deploy these PA devices through our management system, so that it gives you that same level of speed and flexibility out in the field, so that you can go ahead and get 99% of the job done with these pre-configured templates as you go out there and using our management interface. Now, of course, many of you people realize that we also have a redirection server, which is the FDPS. And now what that is that is equivalent to many of the redirection servers, so that you get out of the box provisioning, so that when a person plugs that device into the internet, it'll automatically recognize it as your device, where you can use our management system or you can use your own personal management system to go ahead and deploy on the project that you see fit. So let's go talk a little bit about the console unit here. The real key point about this console unit is that we really come out of the gate with Android 9.0 operating system. Why do we want to put Android on these phones here? And the main reason is because there are many third-party applications that have actually developed applications that are Linux-based designs that you can actually download, and you can have their interface or you could run it standard on our own interface, because what we do is we could actually load in these things, and that you could run ours, or you can have the competitive solution as well. Beyond that, as I mentioned earlier, it also has the H.264 video decoding. And what that means is, if you notice, you can actually have one-way video camera, and you can actually see one-way video on these screens, and you can actually execute many of the functionality right from these speed dial buttons, which I will get into as well. Now, the great news is that it also has built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth capabilities as well. So it conforms to Bluetooth 5.0, as well as having support for both 2.4G as well as 5G Wi-Fi built into the phone. So not only can it support the classic PoE interface on the hardware spectrum, but it also can support many of the wireless or Wi-Fi capabilities as well that has grown in popularity in many of the business systems out in the marketplace. Now let's talk about getting into some of the more functions. You also have a Gooseneck interface here that you can plug in here that provides you really with a close-knit audio screen, audio microphone. It also comes with a large touchscreen phone, and you see this is just a standard interface that you see here, but you can supplement that interface because some people like to program function keys below, where you can actually program these keys to not only do its default function, but to also support many of the functions that you want to provide with a quick access. So take, for example, you may want to push these buttons to sort of, interface when you want to speak on a mic. You can kick that off and be able to do that, but you can also support that by grouping up 112 DSS keys that you can program to fit your particular group or a requirement that you see moving forward. Now let's talk about some of the accessories. As I said, this thing could also display a camera as well for one-way video, but you could also support two-way video, because you might end up loading things like Microsoft Skype or some other different type of program onto these devices where you want to have two-way video. And what we do here is provide an optional equipment that you can actually have a Fanvil CM60 HD camera loaded on this device so that other people can see a two-way camera as well. Supplementing this, you might want to have a Fanvil push to mute handle, because with microphones, you only want to have the microphone active during short periods of time, in which you can have a muted handset here that you can control the operation of the microphone just by that. But as it shows here, this Gooseneck microphone is sort of standard equipment. Unlike the X210, which I showed earlier, that has all the button interface, this one is only available with the speaker microphone, but the X210 comes with the mic as well as a non-microphone type capabilities moving forward. Now let's talk about the Intercom interface. When you go into some of the intercom outlets here, as well as broadcasting and management interface, when you talk about the intercom, you could actually group all of these different speed dials into separate groups that you see here. Here we broke it out into, say, 3 different offices where you have Shenzhen, Beijing, and Suzhou locations here that you can actually group up different type of speed dials, and you can actually see by color all the different type of statuses where each of the lines are, so that you can go ahead and program through all these function keys who you want to go ahead and interface with, and you can do the same thing and program interfaces into the PA systems as well. And it gives you obviously 3 different colors that give you online access in moving these color screens as well. In addition to showing call status, you could also gauge where music comes into play as well. A lot of the music you can actually store. If you notice on the previous slide, you can put in a multi-gigabit USB card onto the actual A32i phone, where you can actually become a streamer of audio, where you can actually control during the broadcast session all of these different pre-announcements. It could be music, it could be morning exercise, it could be a lot of these different things that you have in queue that you can go ahead and select and play for yourself, so that now your phone becomes a broadcast machine that can play out to many of the different PA devices that you have located in the store case. This could be just running a sale on a retail store that you have, or perhaps maybe running a morning greeting in a hospital or in an education environment. But a lot of that control is provided here and gives you some add and delete buttons that gives you a little bit of control of what you want to broadcast out there. In addition to that, we also have a management interface, which really provides you, the administrator, the capabilities of adding an admin mode where you can use this device either in a manned interface, which provides you full capabilities in having administrative mode, or you can have it unmanned where all of a sudden you lock away all of these different capabilities. But once you have administrative mode, you can go ahead and provide forwarding keys so that when all of the calls come in through pushing of the button, you can forward it to your mobile phone or have your extension, so that what that does is gives you remote capability in being able to answer many of those calls. And only that is provided under the management interface, or you can hide that for interfaces that really don't have those type of capabilities. Now let's talk a little bit more about the meat and potatoes of the PA gateway, the Pa2 and the Pa3 moving forward. Now, what I like to use is a synopsis where the Pa2 and Pa3 is what I call the Swiss Army knife of really SIP, of a SIP endpoint. And what that means is that this really provides the true core in being able to spread that cloud-based internet system or on-prem SIP-based internet system to all the different devices that are typically done under the analog interface. Very often you can save the client lots of money by being able to preserve the existing PA speakers as well as their existing PA amplifiers and use it as a broadcasting unit. You could also use it to provide recordings of particular call streams, and you can use it to also interface to a lot of emergency calls that come in and provide security alarms. But what this really is, that all of these capabilities provide these two gateways the capability of being able to interface to all of these different environments under one gateway, giving you that level of flexibility. Now, I'm going to show you some more detail on what these interfaces are and expand a little bit further about which one would be right for your particular unit. Now, in 2 slides ago, I showed you the capability of being able to, if you had an emergency call where no one is actually on site, you can actually forward the calls to your mobile phone here, where all of a sudden, if you were to receive a call and you happen to not be at your desk, you could actually use this and press a predetermined key code, where all of a sudden, if someone was stuck behind a gate, if you received the right key code on a PA1 or perhaps even these gate relays, you can actually open up this gate or any related gate or doorway from a remote location, from one remote location. This provides you with really either on-prem through the actual control center interface, or it gives you really remote access through your mobile access. So when it provides these DTMF keys, you can then remote any specific phone key that is calling you in response to whatever call you might get in the future moving forward. This right here, when I want to focus in on broadcasting, really talks a little bit more about its multicasting capabilities. So say, for example, in the broadcasting room, when you're listening behind this major phone here, you can actually have all of these external audio sources. This could come from a mobile phone that's streaming music, streaming audio, recordings, and this could come into a Pa3 device through a call, right? And what this Pa3 device can do is actually stream this audio to all devices that could be listening. Now, this Pa3 device could be listening in on a Pa3, so you could have one that's providing as an output for multicast, and you can actually put a Pa3 here as a receiving input so that it's listening in on that particular multicast address and transmit it to a constant voltage power amplifier that can power a whole network full of PA systems. Or you can have other systems, which we'll show here, where either through a passive or an active horn amplifier. This can do things like provide phone amplification or make announcements within a system. And this kind of gives you a very high level system, an idea of what you can do with these systems moving forward. Now let's just talk about the Pa2s system here. As I mentioned earlier, the primary difference really is being able to provide 2 separate RJ45 interfaces. And obviously here, this is one level of interface. Now inside the box actually gives you the connector that you can connect to these boxes moving forward, which really provides you with a clean interface where you can connect these switch wires right into it. And the real good thing about it here is that it gives you a one switch input signal that gives you both input and output port, that gives you a one switch relay. A big differentiator about the Pa2 or Pa2s is that it goes up to 30 watts of power. Now, it can go ahead and support up to typically 10 watts in a classic PoE interface that's under class 3, but you could also have an external power supply that could provide up to 30 watts. So depending on the power requirement you need, whether it's an active or a passive speaker, this device here will be flexible enough to be able to meet those specific requirements. And then you have an active network port on the other side. So let's talk about this in a little bit more detail. You actually have a separate camera port, which is another differentiator between the Pa2s as well as the Pa3. We talk about putting together a webcam. The great news about all of our PA products is that Fanvil also provides an accessory kit. And what this kit provides you is really one small box that gives you a spare camera, a spare microphone, as well as spare buttons as well, which kind of gives you the capability of being able to retrofit many of those analog systems that you have that can work with a SIP system. Now, you may want to add a button to be able to make that call, and you could just drill a hole rather than having to uplift that entire old system and being able to retrofit an existing system to work with your new SIP system. Of course, you could have a trigger switch. This could be something that you could work as, say, handicap access. You could push this button to open up a door from the inside going out. That'll also trigger the relay if you're going in and out. These are all little components that you'll find in our access systems, but this provides you with the core so that you can go ahead and modify this SIP endpoint to meet whatever requirement that you have. And then we have different speaker line putouts as well, where you can have interfaces that can talk to passive speakers, or you can have line out speakers that could provide enough line out input to give you that level of signals for an active speaker as well. Another great news is that we also have volume up and down, which gives you a lot of the flexibility that gives you the ability to control volume on this device moving forward. Now let's talk about the Pa3 specification. Now, the Pa3 really upgrades because this is dedicated for audio. This gives you a USB interface that gives you the capability of being able to store audio files or particular announcements within this unit itself. Now, this is it on one side, and you could also interface a camera. Even though this has one PoE interface, what you can do here is that you can actually have this PoE interface hook up into any IP camera with the VGA interface and reference it through an IP address. Whereas in the previous design here, you actually had a separate connection where you can provide your own interface with the separate camera that hooks directly here if you have a physical requirement. But if you have a networked IP camera, then you can actually access that camera through this interface as well. And I'm going to go into that type of thing moving forward. Now, the great news about this is that this also provides audio only interface. And this is great. It provides all the classic volume keys that you can use moving forward. This is more of the interface of the Pa3, where we actually give you the ability to add on 2 key interfaces. And beyond having USB, we also give you a TF card as well, so that you can go ahead and store for local broadcasting recording of your specific unit, which is great. And when you look at here, you can actually have a lot of the mobile sources here, which could be a microphone that enters into a mixer, that you can go in and have the line in out, and then you can have the output going out to either a passive or an active speaker, just like you would with the Pa2. The difference here is that not only could you use the classic power amplifier from a PoE switch here, you could also do a separate power input here as well, and we provide all the recent connections that you can do that with. Now, this is just a video depiction of what I mentioned to you, where the Pa2s supports method 1 as well as method 2. In method 1, you actually have a physical interface that you can hook into it. So if you intend to add a camera using our kit, the normal Pa2s would be the one for you, because it actually has a physical Ethernet interface that allows you to connect both sides together under one interface. Whereas if you actually have an IP camera that's available through an IP network, you could also access this through your specific LAN, so that you can actually broadcast both video and audio unit to whatever endpoint that you have. So the Pa3 does these 2 separate interfaces, and I provide pretty much an outline of how you would access these interfaces accordingly. This is just a matrix which kind of gives you an idea of how to go ahead and put these 2 pieces together between the Pa2 and the Pa3. Here, what you really want to do is the Pa2s is meant for intercom devices or perhaps door access units, where right here it supports short circuit output interface, whereas the Pa3, this one doesn't. But the good news about this is that this actually has onboard memory that you can go ahead and control. Another difference is that it also has the Pa3 supports class 4 interface. Now you might have some differences where you actually have a 25-watt output on a PoE device where you can accept a much higher output on a Pa3 versus on a Pa2. It supports most of the classic class 3s, which goes up to like 12.95 watts on the PoE interface. But both of these kind of support different things, but it really does the same. Now, one of the things about the Pa3 is that it does support an Mp3 interface, which gives you sort of higher frames per second in terms of audio quality, so that the audio might come through a little bit more clearer if you do decide to use with Pa3. And some of the things, if you have a real-time clock, both of these devices have a way of monitoring whether or not a key fob is functioning or not. I'm going to show a case study where it actually does that, where if power were to go off, these things will still remain synchronous in time for up to different type of hours, even when the power is off in both of these devices. So now let's look over the application scenarios moving forward. At a very high level, again, these are units that, similar to phones, could fit into many of the different units, but it provides a very highly specialized interface. You may not want anybody just to press a dial key and just have a single access, but you might have specific areas for the campus where you want to interface onto speaker systems where you want to make announcements to either the entire school or to one specific classroom or cafeteria. These are all the different things that you can do, and obviously in the commercial center, you might have an old analog interface where you have wires that come down and hook into it, but you can go ahead and upgrade those things and really have it work with SIP. I talked about a parking lot entertainment before, but you can go ahead and implement through all of these different areas and more. Wherever there's audio, you can go ahead and make that work with the SIP interface as well. Of course, in a smart community, this falls into many of the different cases where you have these broadcast systems. Now, we have a special case that we actually publicize on our website where you have an elevator. All the elevators that you hop into have emergency key buttons that in the past always interfaced with an analog speaker system. And you can go ahead and put in a Pa2s or what have you, or a Pa3, and be able to really use that and interface with the rest of the phone system that's commensurate throughout the rest of the company. And so you also have the control center, which has this lot here, and all these specific access control devices where you can have access to specific buildings, all controlled with under one same neighborhood under a smart community. This is just another depiction as well, and basically in a small campus environment where you can actually have the same thing where you have all of these different interface units working together in cooperation, being able to cooperate with each other, using the speed dials of our specific phones, talking to all of the different PA system that you talk here, either under an on-prem or a cloud-based system, using all of these things working together on the one campus. Obviously, for hospitality, this is a really big growing segment, because we imagine that once this pandemic is over, we imagine that there's going to be a large growth segment in the hospitality environment. And you can use these things, the broadcast environment, to go ahead and control PA systems. Many large hotels these days have conference rooms and even ballrooms that you can go ahead and make announcements, and you can use these tools, as well as our localized hospitality phones that actually have Wi-Fi interface. You can hook into all the different rooms, use our specific wall mount units that you have here, along with our PA systems to hook into their PAs, as well as a control center, the one with a mic and those without a mic, depending on what your specific needs, to fit all the entire needs of a hospitality environment. So all of these different endpoints allow you to go to all of these different solution sets. So for those value-added resellers and the system integrators that are out there, you could begin expanding the menu of solutions that you can bring forth on a particular project that you can do going beyond just telephones. Now let's talk about some of the case studies. Here's a particular case study that we've done in Korea where all of a sudden you had this unmanned kiosk. And one of these things that it does is really when this thing goes down, we always have this button so that if something is not functioning, you could push this button and this provides a particular SIP call onto whatever emergency kiosk. This could be a mobile phone where you have it going into, or it could be that A32i that's sitting in the center console somewhere that can answer the call, and you can go ahead and take advantage of business inside it. And here's where the PA system is actually working to make sure that it provides an emergency call when this system is not necessarily working as needed, or if the person has a specific question. Here's a case in Mexico where we've gone ahead and actually provide an output as well as an input in a retail environment. Here's a case where you can go ahead and announce and make calls where you can go ahead and say, hey, today there's a sales on flat screen TVs, where you can actually call up and actually answer it with a SIP call. And instead of announcing it over the phone, you could put a bullhorn here that could either be a loud ringer, or you can make announcements as you want to, because this PA device becomes an auto answering phone that once you call it, it picks up the extension and will make whatever announcements that you see fit moving forward. Now in the last slide here, moving forward, you'll also notice, oops, hang on just a second, is that we made an upgrade to an intercom device in a train station in Indonesia. Here you had a lot of devices where it was an old analog system in the past, and what they wanted to do when they upgraded their phone systems to SIP is to be able to integrate a PA system here where you can actually take advantage of integrating a separate camera as well as an auxiliary button onto what was what used to be just an audio system, where you can now retrofit this system and adding a button and adding this onto an existing amplifier here, so that it provides sort of an emergency call access to not only this train station, but it could be bus stations or whatever train stations that are located throughout the world. So that's what I'm going to have, and I think this really provides an overview for a lot of the different broadcast systems. I think this is the last slide. Now, what I want to do here is that anybody who has any specific questions that they have, you can go ahead and provide any questions that you may on the question set, and I'll go ahead and stay beyond this webinar to try to address whatever questions that you may have. So if you have any questions on your device, please go ahead and provide any questions. And oh, by the way, I also put a soft copy of this presentation in your handout. So if you go to your handout section on your GoToMeeting client, you can actually go to handouts, download a soft copy of the presentation I just presented, so that you can go ahead and refer to all of those specific contacts and solution sets moving forward. So I'll wait behind for the next 30 seconds to see if there's any questions. If there's no questions that come up, then I want to thank you very much for your time and be able to provide any help. If you need any help, feel free to go to our Fanvil website, which is www.fanvil.com. And there you'll actually find contact information, and you can reach out to your local specific representative to address any questions that you want. Okay? Now, without any questions coming forth, I guess hopefully everything was clear. I want to thank you very much for your time. And my name is Tommy Lee. Again, thank you for your time and have a great and wonderful day. Take care. Bye-bye. Oh, wait, the Pa2 has a 32 ohm headset out. Actually, the output of the device, I think, caters more to an 8 ohm or a 4 ohm output. I'm not sure if it has a headset out, but it does come with a 32-bit 3mm pin that you could plug in. I'm not necessarily sure on what the output interface is, but the line out on the Pa2 is typically 8 and 4, depending on what output impedance that you put into it. I hope that answers your question. I'll wait around for another 2 or 3 minutes in case any more questions come up. Okay, I guess that is it. Again, thank you very much for your time. If not, feel free to go ahead and reach out to our support. And by the way, on our main page on the support, there's lots of training videos as well that you might go ahead and refer to specific videos that you might have that help you get set up with even just FMCS, where you can actually have a tutorial that gives you an idea how to operate our management system as well, so that you can go ahead and monitor these systems as well. So all of these things are available. If not, feel free to give us a call, and we'll be more than happy to address any questions you might have. Again, thank you very much for your time. Bye-bye.